All right, hey, this is Josh Bruce. So, still moving over this string class. I think we've actually gone almost to the point of not needing this anymore as a reference. But I'm going to keep it around because I do see what we're going to be working on today available. So, now what we're going to be looking at right now is lowercase and uppercase. And basically, what it does is it returns a string. It returns the string. So, but we have sort of an odd man out, if you will, when it comes to methods. So we have string, which turns whatever this or returns the stored string. But then we also have this toArray, which basically returns the string exploded out into an array. But the call sign, the declaration for this function, is more of a command, like string toArray, and like you're a magician and you wave your wand and stuff happens. Instead of saying, the array version of the string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change this. And we're going to do this in the TDD fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that, and I'm just going to call it array. Right? So that way it matches everything. And as you can see, 22 tests, 11 assertions, and 13 errors. Right? And it's all because we're calling into toArray. So what we're going to do is something a little different. All right. So, and I'm sure Sublime Text has a way to do this. This is just the way I do it because it's applicable across the macOS ecosystem. It's not specific to this application. So I don't have to say, oh, I'm in Sublime Text, this is how I do it. Instead, I can just be anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command E. So I've highlighted toArray and I'm hitting Command E. And what that does is it puts that into a find, so to speak, right? The toArray part. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in array, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to hit Command C to copy it, right? Now, I'm going to hit Command G, which goes to the next instance of toArray, and then I'm going to hit Command V to replace it. So Command G to find the next one, Command V to replace it, G, V, G, V, G, V, G, no more. So now let's see what we get. All right, and so everything's green again. Yay. All right, so I also want to make sure that these functions are staying somewhat close to the other ones that just return the entire string, not parts of it, and it doesn't just manipulate it and that sort of a thing. So we're going to stick to being up here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to test that we can get lowercase string. Okay. Now this is multi-byte sensitive, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to say result, or rather, let's do this, string equals string from string hello world, and expected is going to be that. So the main result is string lowercase, and this assert equals expected result, and this assert equals, we want to make sure that we're not manipulating the actual raw string. So this equals string. Fails because we don't have that method. Come up here, function, lowercase, don't need any of that. So this, so the standard library in PHP has something called string to lower, and technically that works. Having said that, to be safe, right? Because one of the other reasons for multi-byte characters is for other languages other than English. And so because there is an MB underscore string to lower, I am going to go ahead and do that just to be on the safe side. All right, so uppercased. So we take this. Uppercased string. So that's what we're expecting. This is what we gave it, and the main one should never change. Okay, and of course, uppercased. Uppercased does not exist. Don't need any of that. And we're going to return, and so there's string to lower and there's string to upper. So let's go ahead and do that and see what that gets us. Right. So there we go. I mean, this is really fleshing out to be a pretty robust way of handling things. Now, one of the things I did think about is that, so we have insert and remove, right? So opposites. We have append, but we don't have prepend, and so there may come a point where I actually prepend, create a prepend method, but for right now, I think we're good. So let's see what else we have. We have equality checks, more operators, and again, we don't have a way to do this in PHP that I'm aware of. So this is interesting. Elements equal returns a Boolean value indicating whether this sequence and another sequence contain the same elements in the same order. So let's see what we got there. So I'm going to grab these. Test can check equality. All right, so we're going to say compare equals that, and we're going to create a string. String that is equal to str from string. I'm just going to use compare in there. Okay. And now, do I want to say elements equal, right? Do we want to have this API be that close? And I'm going to say elements equal I'm tempted to just say same as, right? And then say this there we go. This assert true result. Of course that fails because same as. Now as I'm thinking about this, I'm already starting to second guess whether or not that's a good idea. So I'm actually going to say is same as, and I'm going to say string. Now, one of the things we could do is we could say, you know, this has to be an instance of str, but I don't think that's the way we're normally going to be handling it, right? Like, I don't want this library to force a developer to have to use str everywhere in their system. They should be able to just use string literals and call it a day. So we're just going to say compare, and it's going to return a bool, and yeah, so is same as. So of course this is going to fail still because no same as exists. So I say is same as, because again we've got this convention going of is empty, you know, are you empty, are you the same as this, and again with TDD, technically this is the simplest thing that we need to pass that code. So what we would end up having to do is create check quality fails, and compare h result is same as, result is false, and it fails, right? Because one of these is going to fail always, right? So even if I put in false here, one of them fails. So we have to, now we're sort of backed into the corner of actually having to build out the logic. So the question becomes, how do we want to build out the logic? For me, what I would say is, let's see. Yeah, let's do that. So this array triple equals str from string compare array. And that's because arrays, look, when you triple compare arrays, it gets much more intense with its comparison. So could be overkill, could be the wrong way to go. There might be a standard library function, but this is easy to read. No matter what your intimacy with the language is. And I can't remember what I was watching or reading or whatever that talked about, you know, when you write code, the objective is not to demonstrate your knowledge of the language and the standard library in which you reside. The idea is to make it easy to read. So when we use a lot of standard library methods, especially ones that aren't really known, or use a lot of things that are specific to a language, right? Like JavaScript, if you have a function that is an array and da-da-da-da-da, all of a sudden it can return 1. And you know, you have 17 characters, but at the end of the day, they're 1. And so, you know, just why not just make it 1? So because this wraps, does it actually break the, I mean, it doesn't break the 80 character or 80 column. So, you know, I guess I'm fine with it. But I was going to reformat it to make it a little bit, maybe a little bit easier to read. So anyway, is same as, can we check? Cool. Starts. So starts is basically looking at, does it have a prefix, a given prefix, right? So how do we want to do that? Starts with, what is this? This is, starts with by, that's another predicate thing that we're not going to get into. Yeah, so we'll just do starts with. So public function test can check for prefix. Yeah, I don't want to use these multi-byte characters. So string str from string compare starts with those three. Oops. Result this assert true result. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this, and it fails because we don't have starts with. Function starts with string prefix bool. There we go. So I will go ahead and make the negation by doing that. Should be false, right? And so we hop in here. If we say return true, we should get at least one failing test. If we say false, we should get at least one failing test, but it's not the same. So there we go. All right, so the question is, how do we want to go about figuring this out? Like what's an easy way to go ahead and do that? And do we have it, or do we have to go back to the standard library and actually create it? So starts with, let's see what the standard library gets us. PHP string begins with how to check if a string starts a specific string. This question has already been answered. Starts with, see, string length, we already know that's not going to work with multi-byte characters. Substring and needle, and see, this is a lot of, you kind of got to know conventions and things like that. So what if we did this? All right, so that gets us the array function private bisected array at. This is going to return a associative array. Of course, with PHP, they're all associative arrays. The indices are also just keys. So, at least from what I understand. So we should be able to return left is left and right is right. And if we come back down here where we stole this from, we should be able to say array this bisected array at left equals array left, right equals array right. Should only have, ooh, we're not. Did I forget a semicolon? I hate when that happens. All right, so we have a bisected array, so we can split this array. Go ahead and instantiate this, the prefix as one of our strings, and should be able to say length compare count. Should be able to say array equals this bisected array right, because we're just doing the length of the prefix, right? So that's going to give us a left, which is what we want to compare those two strings to. So I'm going to implode array left, and then I'm going to return compare is same as the left. Maybe? No. Oh. Okay. So just in case you didn't follow that, because I made it up as I went, what we're going to do is we're going to take the comparison string that we were given, the prefix, right? We're going to turn it into a string class, an instance of our string, right? And we're going to use that to give us a space or the position in which to bisect our string, right? And so we bisect that string, or we bisect this instance of the string, and then we go ahead and convert it back into the result back into a string. Okay. And then what we're going to do is, because we have an instance of string, an str instance in this compare, is we're going to check if that prefix is the same exact thing as what's on the left of this other thing, right? That we're comparing against. And so both of these, both of the tests passed. Let me go ahead and close that. Both of the tests passed, so that means that we should be fine, right? And it's a lot, at least in my brain, it's easier to read than this solution here, even though this solution will work and does make sense. So starts. Skipping the predicate one, lexigraphically precedes. I'm going to skip that for now. And so now we have has prefix, indicating whether the string begins with the specified prefix. So I don't know what the difference between starts, returns a Boolean value indicating whether the initial elements of the sequence are the same as the elements in another sequence, versus has prefix, right? So basically, what we should be able to do is I should be able to copy this and just say has prefix. So other than giving us a new way to enter, a new API, I don't understand what the difference might be. So between this and starts with. So what we should be able to do is has prefix string prefix returns a Boolean value, return this starts with prefix. Like, it's literally that easy. All right, now we need to do a suffix. So autocomplete. Even developers, man, fall victim to it. So test can check for suffix. Okay. So has suffix. Okay, so this time what we're looking for is very similar to the starts with, but a little bit different. So first things first, let's get an instance of our str from string suffix. Oops. What am I even doing? All right. Now, the at for this is going to be a little bit different, right? Because what we really want to do is we want to say this count, so whatever I am, which in theory, if we're looking for a suffix, a substring of another value, it should always be less than the main one. So should be able to say compare count, and that will give me the correct index. Okay, so next we're going to do array this bisected array at. And this time we want to get right, okay, the right half. So array right. Then we should be able to do array compare is same as, because again, this right variable is not a string instance or an str instance, but compare is. So string. All right, so that worked. All right, so yeah, We are definitely in a different section. So again, cruising right along, just doing our TDD, but notice that it's becoming a lot easier. We're able to go through a lot more methods in a shorter period of time, and that's because we're mainly just doing function composition of methods we already have. Thinking in terms of, okay, what does this need to do? What do I already have? Well, I have the ability to create an str which has a count, which has this, which does this, and all these things, right? Like it's starting to, for lack of a better term, it's starting to be a self-managing class. It doesn't have to reach up into the standard library as much to get back what the user needs. Not that that's inherently bad, it's just it starts to become easier to reason about when it's all local to this. And again, it's multi-byte safe and everything like that, and it doesn't have to be multi-bytes, right? Like we could be passing in ASCII characters and things like that. But anyhow, we've come a long way, and we're not, again, we're starting to be less dependent on the actual standard library and starting to be more are able to leverage more of what we're creating. So as always, thanks for making the time, and we'll see you next time.